Discussion and debate are the two most important features of group decision making. By leveraging the unique experiences, expertise, and backgrounds of each individual member of your organization, it allows you to come up with more creative and innovative solutions and decisions than you otherwise could all on your own. But there will come a time when you must reach a decision. You might find that the discussion has become circular, that points are being raised over and over again, or that individuals or factions of individuals are deliberately slowing things down. If this is the case, the motion, the previous question, or as it's called in the Standard Code, to close debate and vote immediately, are powerful tools. They will allow you to wrap up the conversation and get right to the decision making. Now, this is one of the most misunderstood and misused motions that I have come across. So in this motion analysis, we're going to take a close and careful look at the previous question and the motion to close debate and vote immediately. So stick around and we're going to take a deep dive. If debate and discussion have gotten to the point where things are no longer productive, if there is a member or a faction of members within your assembly who are actively trying to obstruct progress, or if it has become abundantly clear that all members in the assembly are ready to vote on the pending motion, pending question, then the motion, the previous question, or as it's put in the Standard Code, the motion to close debate and vote immediately is a powerful motion that you can use in your meetings. What this motion does is, if it is adopted, the Assembly will immediately move to the pending question, the pending motion, and without any further debate or further amendments or further subsidiary motions, will vote on that motion. The purpose of this motion is to prevent any further debate and prevent any additional subsidiary motions on the pending question. Now, the motion, the previous question, or to close debate and vote immediately, this is a often misunderstood and misused motion. So we're going to take great care to walk through the standard characteristics. But as you will see as we go through this is not the same thing as a member just blurting out question and expecting the chair to curtail debate at that motion. Why would you use this motion? We talked about it just moments ago. When debate has become repetitive and non-productive, if a member or faction of members are using obstruction and delay tactics such as filibustering, or if you need to streamline the decision-making process, knowing full well that the Assembly is ready to make a decision. If, however, debate is still yielding relevant and important information, or if members who are in the minority opinion still have yet to be heard, you're going to want to avoid using this motion at that time. Now remember, we're all about balancing rights between the individual members to participate and contribute and be heard with the rights of the Assembly and the organization to move business forward. And so this motion does affect the rights of individual members by immediately closing debate. Be careful how you use it. Be careful when you use it. And try not to overuse this motion. So with that brief introduction into the motion, the previous question, and to close debate and vote immediately, let's talk about the standard characteristics. Number 1, precedence. Under Robert's Rules of Order, this motion has precedence over all amendable motions and all debatable motions. It does yield to the motion lay on the table all privileged motions and all applicable incidental motions. Under the Standard Code, this motion has precedence over all subsidiary motions except the motion to table. And Bourneau's Rules of Order talks about the fact that this motion cannot supersede the motion to refer to committee. Characteristic number 2, application. So under Robert's Rules of Order, this can be applied to any pending debatable or amendable motion or series of debatable and amendable motions. Under Standard Code, this motion applies to debatable or amendable motions only. And the Standard Code goes a step further and says only motion to amend and motion to withdraw can be applied to it. Bourneau's Rules of Order is silent on application. Third characteristic, interruptions. For Robert's Rules of Order, this is out of order if somebody has the floor. Standard Code says clearly that there can be no interruptions and that the member must seek and be assigned the floor. And while Bourneau doesn't explicitly talk about whether a member can interrupt or not, it is implied in the phrasing in Bourneau's Rules of Order that this must be properly moved and seconded, so that means that the member must seek recognition from the chair. So I want to hit on this one more time. This motion cannot interrupt a speaker. So members and chairs, no blurting out the word question in the middle of somebody's time to speak. Next, does this motion require a second? And yes, all three authorities state clearly that this motion must be seconded. Is this motion debatable? We have a little bit of a disagreement here between our authorities. So both Robert's Rules of Order and the Standard Code say clearly that this is not a debatable motion. However, Bourneau does say that this is a debatable motion. So keep that in mind, depending on which authority you have chosen for your assembly. Is this motion amendable? Well, Robert's Rule says clearly no, this is not an amendable motion. The Standard Code, however, a little different. It does say that it's amendable only as to the motion to which it will apply. Bourneau? No, not amendable. Now let's talk about the vote threshold required to adopt this motion. Because we are closing debate immediately, and because we are sensitive to the democratic rights of our members, we need a 2/3 majority threshold for this to be adopted according to Robert's Rules and according to the Standard Code. Now, Bourneau is not explicit as to what vote threshold is required. And because of this, my read is that Bourneau assumes a majority vote. I read it that way because in all other cases, when a 2/3 majority is required, it is explicitly stated as such. And for Bourneau to not state that explicitly, I read that as implying that it's a majority vote required under Bourneau's rules only. If you think I'm wrong, and if you can point me to a different reading of this, please drop that down below in the comment section. Finally, reconsideration, and renewal. So, Robert's Rules of Order says this, that the affirmative vote can be reconsidered if the actual question has not been voted on yet, and that the negative vote can be reconsidered only until debate has progressed far enough to make it essentially a new question. Then it's a renewal. What does the Standard Code say? It says that it can be renewed after a change in the parliamentary situation. As for Bourneau, the pending motion is actually set aside if the previous question fails and can be reintroduced at a different meeting. Some special notes on this motion. So under Robert's Rules of Order, this is the motion, the previous question. And I mentioned it before that this is a very misunderstood motion in my experience. I've rarely seen it used properly outside of legislative assemblies and parliaments. Most often what I've seen, and maybe what you've seen yourself, is that members just yell out question and the chair immediately moves to a vote. That is improper. Chairs, asking if folks are ready for the question when it feels like debate is over, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but members should know that it's not a formal procedure to do that, and that simply saying the word question isn't a motion in and of itself necessarily. That they need to have obtained the floor through recognition by you, the chair. They need to move the motion. Now, it can be stated in an unusual way, I think is the way that Robert's Rules says it. And they can say, I call the question or question. But that should be taken as them moving the previous question, which means they will then need a seconder, and there will need to be a 2/3 majority in order to adopt the order to call the previous question, and then we move into the vote on the pending motion. So just be very careful to handle this as a proper motion in a non-standard form. And it never hurts to explain to the members why you're doing this. The Standard Code backs both myself and Robert's Rules up in the same way. They say that there is a common practice to call the question or to say question without obtaining the floor. They go further in the Standard Code by saying calling out question can be seen as an informal way to move to close debate and vote immediately. But it is not in order if the member has not obtained the floor first. They need a second and a 2/3 majority. Special note as well that the previous question can be applied to a number or a sequence of motions, in which case you will want to take extra care to ensure that all members understand what is happening and to which the order would apply if adopted, and then execute that order clearly to each motion. Now, Bourneau's Rules of Order takes a very different approach to Robert's Rules and the Standard Code. So I think it's important to stress how Bourneau describes a defeat of the motion, the previous question. Under Bourneau's Rules of Order, a defeat of the motion means that the main motion may not be now put to the question, and it is now suspended. The motion that the question be now put should be used with caution, Bourneau warns, and with a clear understanding of the end it is intended to accomplish, which is that debate comes to an end and there is no further action prior to a vote on the issue in question, or, if the motion fails, that the issue will be temporarily set aside and can be called back on a future day. Okay, now on to a few examples. Remember, the member must first seek recognition from the chair, and the chair recognizes the member. at which point the member would say, I move the previous question. Somebody seconds that motion in the usual way. Then the chair would reply with, the previous question has been moved and seconded. Those in favor of ordering the previous question, those against ordering the previous question. The vote is then taken, and the chair could say, there are 2/3 in favor, and the previous question is now ordered on the pending motion, or that there are less than 2/3 in the affirmative, and therefore the motion fails, or the motion is lost. At which point, if the motion is adopted, the chair then moves immediately to the pending motion and asks, all right, the question is now on whatever it was that we were talking about. All of those in favor, all of those against, motion passes, motion fails. Now let's use an example from the Standard Code. And remember, the Standard Code uses the terminology, the motion to close debate and vote immediately. So, the member seeks recognition from the chair. Chair recognizes the member, and the member says something along the lines of, I move to close debate, or I move to close debate and vote immediately, or I move to close debate and vote immediately on all pending motions. One of the above. But let's go with I move to close debate. Chair replies with, it has been moved and seconded to close debate and vote immediately on motion X. Those in favor, those opposed. There are 2/3 in the affirmative. The order to close debate is adopted. We will now move to vote on the pending motion, motion X. All those in favor, all those against. Or if there isn't 2/3, there are less than 2/3 in favor of closing debate. The motion fails, and then we move on. In Borno's Rules of Order, the question is a little bit more closely to what would be used in Parliament. So we're using a little bit older language, and that is that the member seeks recognition from the chair, granted recognition, and says, I move that the question be now put. Motion is seconded, and then the chair would put that question to the group. The motion, the previous question, and the motion to close debate and vote immediately are probably the two most misunderstood and misused questions in my experience that I've encountered. So take great care to follow the procedural steps and abide by the standard characteristics that we've talked about in this video. Because keep in mind that you are infringing on the rights of your members to contribute and to be heard. However, there may come a time where debate has become repetitive and non-productive, or a member or a faction of members in your assembly are actively obstructing business and using delay tactics. Or maybe it has become abundantly clear that the assembly is ready to vote and make a decision on the pending motion. This is a powerful motion to ensure that business in your assembly is able to move ahead in a way that still respects the right of members to contribute. All right, meeting adjourned for this episode of Parliamentary Inquiry. If you found this interesting or helpful, hit the like button and remember to drop any questions that you have down in the comment section. If you're looking for step-by-step breakdowns of procedural items, check out the series Order of Business. If you're interested in more long-form conversation around issues pertaining to meeting rules and procedure, check out Point of Order. If you're looking for general insights into how to make your meetings more effective, The Monthly Grind is the series for you. For now, why not watch one of these two videos here or here, and I will see you next time.